All right. Well, it's, I don't know, 6 minutes after. Should I get going? I'm going to stop our screen share, my screen share here, so we can all be on the screen for our attendees to see. And good morning. Welcome to Coffee Talk Tuesday, our first in our series of our update on the arts. We want to find out what's going on in Terre Haute, and I guess I'll just remind everybody again, this was really the idea of Eileen Prose. You know, we know Eileen is a big supporter of all of the arts and culture community here in Terre Haute, and she said, Kate, why don't you connect with those people and let's find out what's going on, you know, within each organization on our Coffee Talk, because she's a regular attendee with us. So I give all credit to her. You know, it's a brilliant idea, and we thank David Bowden and Samantha Johnson-Helms for being our very first guests on our update from the arts. And welcome to both of you from the Terre Haute Symphony Orchestra. And good morning to all of our participants as well. We're glad that you're our attendees, and we're glad that you're here with us. I was saying earlier, and I'll repeat again, this webinar format is a little bit different than a meeting format on Zoom. So we'll be having discussion and asking questions, you know, of David and Samantha, and then, but you are allowed to use the chat feature to type in a question if you wish to. Rebecca's going to keep those and monitor those and make sure that they are answered. And then maybe once we've gotten through those, I can kind of unmute everybody. So if you wanted to kind of pipe in verbally with your own question, you can do that as well. I'll let you know when I unmute the attendees. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. David Bowden, your official title is the Artistic Director, is that correct?
That is correct.
Symphony Orchestra?
Yep.
Very good. And we're just really thrilled that you're with us. I was perusing your website again the other day, and it looks like you still have a lot going on, even during this kind of COVID time. A lot of ways you're trying to connect with people.
We do. A lot of that is centered in what Sammy is doing. We have, through the good graces of the Wabash Valley Community Foundation, an organization that we have been able to really ramp up with called Network for Good. And we're doing a lot of connection with people through that system. And I'll have Sammy talk about that in just a minute. But they provided us with 1 year of free use of this wonderful platform. It's basically a donor program, but it allows us to connect with an email program associated with it. And so we have been trying to utilize that for connecting with people. We're looking at a lot of different things coming up. At this point, we're still planning on having a season. We're looking at lots of alternatives. Our board of directors asked me to run scenarios, and we ran a scenario that was for doing the entire season in terms of budget. We ran one where we had no season if things just don't turn around, and we ran one where we did approximately half. And in all of those cases, we have, at this point, sufficient reserves to be able to make it through and stay in business. And we're really excited about that, because before we knew that, you know, there's a lot of concern. There are organizations that are not doing well, that are very similar to us. And the Terre Haute community has been so generous with us over many years, but especially recently. And so we're in a position to weather the storm, and that's very exciting. But a major part of this has been that I've been the executive director as well as the artistic director for the last 3.5 years. And over the course of this past year, Sammy has been working with me in a role we called marketing manager, but it was actually getting her ready to be the executive director. And as of, what was the date? The 26th, Sammy, that we had the press conference? 24th.
24th, yeah.
We did a press conference, and we did it at Fairbanks Park and announced her as our new executive director, and she started work on July 1st. So, ladies and gentlemen, well, let's see, it looks like ladies. This is Sammy Johnson. Samantha Johnson-Helms is her full name, but we all call her Sammy. By the way, if you want to use that and write it, it's just the traditional spelling, S-A-M-M-Y. So here's Sammy.
I learned at a very young age, I apparently spell Sammy like the boys do. And everyone's asked me, why don't you spell it Sammie or with an I? And I don't know. I spell it with a Y. So please call me Sammy. Samantha's a little bit too formal for me, so I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having us. David was mentioning our Network for Good program, and I can't thank the Wabash Valley Community Foundation enough for giving us this opportunity. They, Network for Good has been a fabulous kind of experiment in a way. We got, like David said, the use of the program for free for 12 months, in addition to getting a fundraising coach. So we've had a fundraising coach from Network for Good. When we were first getting the program going, we would meet once a week, and now we're meeting once a month. And our coach is fabulous. He's worked with symphony orchestras in the past, and he's worked with other arts organizations specifically. So he's given us a lot of insight on how to really connect with our audience. And the system itself, which is a donor management system, allows us to do email blasts. So that's where all the emails have been coming from. Easy to put together templates, easy to make them look nice. They also have a text feature, which we're going to experiment with just a little bit. I know that a lot of our audience isn't necessarily comfortable with text messages, and text messages can seem a little bit informal. So we're going to try to work on ways, how can we use text message effectively, but also not overuse it. One feature that they just came out with is called a group video, where you can send a video to a group of people in your contact base. Again, something else we need to kind of experiment with. What I love about Network for Good is that they're constantly coming up with new ways to engage with your audience. And I was asked to be part of a panel a couple weeks ago with their kind of innovation team to talk about an event that we just recently did, Music in Bloom, which was our first ever virtual concert. So I'll talk about that here in a minute. But they asked me to kind of share what we did with that concert, and how Network for Good, the program that we use, could potentially be part of a virtual event. They're actually trying to make it more virtual friendly, which I thought, this is fabulous. I'm so glad we're in with these guys, because they're so willing to add new features and really care about their customers and their donor base. So a few weeks ago, the Symphony kind of stepped into a realm that we've never been in before, which is live streaming a concert for the very first time. At least, I don't think we've ever live streamed a concert, right, David? Yeah, this is
correct.
Absolutely the first time we've done it. We had a lot of help from one of our board members, Mike King, who worked with the Indiana Sports Network, and they brought in 3 cameramen. And so we had 2 guys doing camera, and then Tim was doing the board, the soundboard, and the camera. I mean, it was like a full setup. It was very cool. And Central Presbyterian Church also offered their venue. Fabulous. We had about 10 musicians, and they were all socially distanced around the church. And we had just either duos or soloists. And for those who were wondering, I got this question a lot, when did you rehearse? We didn't. They showed up and they played. They had maybe about a few minutes. They maybe showed up an hour before we went live, and each of them maybe started, if there was a duo, they started the piece, did a couple transitions, but in the performance, a lot of that was live reading for the first time together. So that's what professional musicians do. They have to sometimes show up and just play.
And make it so easy too, I think.
That's why we go to music school. So.
Sammy, you were one of the people doing that. So you did just a little bit at the beginning with Chad, and then a transition or two. And how did that feel?
Well, it was actually quite smooth. The way that Mike, he's a professional broadcaster, and he has a way of just making it feel smooth and just, seamless in the production. We had an overall plan of, we want to do an introduction, do a transition to Daniel, our concert master, and Tim, our principal keyboard, and then a little bit of talking again. So we had it lined out on a piece of paper. What was neat for me is I got to kind of do both of those. I was helping introduce some of the musicians during the talking pieces, but then as principal clarinetist, I also played a duo with our principal bassoonist. as well. So Mike did a little bit of a solo transition while I ran over to get my instrument and get seated with Chad. So, oh yes, and the piece of paper. I thought that was very funny. So as clarinetists, we have to tuck our lip over our bottom teeth, embouchure. And sometimes it's painful because you have, you know, teeth going in and there's pressure on your bottom lip. So a lot of us will wear either a piece of paper or a piece of material. EZO, denture wax is actually a very popular substance, and you just put a little piece over so that your teeth don't cut into your lip. Well, I had not had a chance to take it out after I had played before we were introducing the next piece, and it was starting to kind of come out, and I got a little embarrassed. I'm like, sorry guys, as my piece of paper is coming out, and Mike, tell us about this. You know, like a lot of people don't know that clarinetists, you know, have paper in their teeth. They may not know what it is. And I had so many colleagues, coworkers, friends texted me and said, that was cool. I didn't know you did that. And so it worked out really nicely. But that kind of prompted some ideas from Mike about doing musician profile videos and allowing our musicians to talk about being an instrumentalist and what is a reed and how does a reed work and what is a ligature and why do you have to have a ligature and how do you tune strings, what is actually happening when you're tuning the strings, or how do you have to hold the bow, and just some of the more intimate technical features that you don't necessarily see when you're sitting out in the audience watching the orchestra from the stage. So those are some ideas that have kind of evolved from doing this Music in Bloom virtual concert, and we're going to look into more possibilities, especially if we end up not having concerts in Tilson. Music in Bloom has kind of set a precedent for some opportunities that we can do in the future and some other virtual content that we can start to get out into the Terre Haute community.
Yeah, how neat would that be to have those musician profiles? And then we see a little bit more of your personalities. And then when we stage in the future, you feel more connected to each other.
Yes.
That'll be fabulous. And probably also appeal to even a younger audience as well, won't it? Because all the kids are always, you know, watching these videos, and, you know, and they might want to follow the person who plays the instrument that they play. And
yeah. What another idea that we had was creating educational videos. In addition to the musician profile videos, creating videos that are a little bit more geared towards elementary age folks that are going to be picking up an instrument, you know, in the next couple years. We do our Adventures in Music concerts typically in April each year. This past April, we unfortunately had to cancel because of the virus, but we've rescheduled it. What day did we, I forget, in September, I think, right now.
September 30th.
So it's been rescheduled for September 30th, but, you know, if it doesn't happen, we will create videos with each of our principal musicians, and they will do the demos that we typically do during the presentation. What's neat about the videos is they're going to be a little bit more up close and personal, and some of those students that are sitting way back in the auditorium are actually going to get to see the musician up close and see a close-up of the instrument and how it's played, and talk a little bit about some of the excerpts that we demo. So definitely.
And actually, Marie made a comment here that she thinks that it's a fantastic idea with the profiles, but she also commented it'd be something that schools could tap into as well.
Oh, absolutely, Marie. Yes, definitely. And I think it's something we'll put on our YouTube page as well. We're trying to build up our YouTube page to give our audience more options, not Facebook, but YouTube has a little bit more powerful video platform. And so that'll be an option. Sorry, there's a fly like running around in here. So YouTube is going to kind of be our hub for all of these videos that we're creating, and we'll share them with the schools. We'll contact some of the music educators in the community and let them know, hey, we are creating this video library. Please share with your students.
it's so much work to, you know, I know sometimes folks don't realize, and we were all kind of thrown into this. I feel like I'm feeling a lot of similarities, you know, with you and the things that you have going on and the challenges, because we were all kind of thrown into this, you know, with this whole COVID, like all of a sudden we go from, because we have a similar audience and a similar clientele, I think, you know, we go from, you know, phone calls and direct mail pieces and, you know, and the the attendees, you want them to come on site, you want them to come to the symphony, we want them to come here, to Westminster Village. It's very similar. So we go from that to, nope, you're cut off there. We have to reinvent and find those new ways to connect with people. And unfortunately, the senior living industry wasn't up on all of that, as much. Social media and the videos and the video library on YouTube and all those things like you're trying to create now as well. And so I think that's awesome that you have that tool that the Wabash Community Foundation provided you. That's huge to have those resources to be able to start to create some of those things and doing. It's kind of a savior.
Yeah, it has really organized and improved our connection to the community. Absolutely. And it's made it a little bit more consistent. And I think that has really helped, especially with our Music in Bloom attendance. We had over 1,100 viewers at the time that it was, going on live. And that's about how many people we have for a concert, and sometimes less than that. And
right.
That was very exciting to see how the Network for Good tools really helped us get the message out and put it in a nice visual way that made people want to connect and want to tune into that live event.
So just to say that one of the things that both Sammy and I are really grateful for, she's mentioned Mike King. Mike is a board member, and he came on as a board member. A little unusual, his area of expertise is in broadcast production and hosting things and so forth. And when we first talked, he wasn't sure, maybe, and now he is the perfect person to help us through this, because, if we didn't have him, we wouldn't really know how to do this. And Sam, when he made that proposal, he proposed this. This was his idea.
It was his idea, yes. And we are, again, so lucky to have him on board. Since we've done that, every time I talk to him, he's got another idea of what we can do and how we can create virtual content. So he and I actually have a meeting this afternoon to kind of start finding some of these musician profile videos. So
as that is being developed, if people did not see Music in Bloom, it's on the website, right? They can
It's on our website, it's on our social media page, and it's on our YouTube page. So go subscribe to us on YouTube. Full concert is on YouTube and Facebook, all the above.
I saw the link on your site. It's very easy to get to when you kind of scroll down on the main page, and it's, it says, if you want to watch a recording of the concert, click here. Super easy.
Yes. Yep, and we have the full program right there and all of the musicians. There's also an article that we posted with all of the musician profiles, so you can get to know them and take a look at their picture as well.
Mm-hmm. So when you all get to do these, because I'm going to be positive and hopeful September, right? We're going to get back together again at the symphony. What is that? Do you know what that's going to look like yet, David? Is it going to, and Samantha, is it going to be kind of distanced still and separated, or we're not quite sure yet?
Well, we have some additional guidance to receive from the governor. He said he was going to, I think in another week and a half, provide some additional thoughts. And we, of course, because we are on the ISU campus, we also have the guidance that will come from Indiana State University. At this point, we're planning ahead to do it as it has been planned, but if we don't, we have lots of peers in the industry. So we have some of our peers who are doing smaller chamber concerts. They're not going to do the same program. They're going to do smaller chamber concerts because musicians normally sit pretty packed together. They in order to be able to hear each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't do that, if we have to do the distancing thing, I saw the Capitol 4th on PBS that was just on July 4th, and they had a very small orchestra, just two violins, two violas, and so forth, and they had them all spread out on a large stage. That's one of the possibilities, but then we can't do exactly the same repertoire we have planned. Another possibility is some people are taking it outside. They're doing it outside, of course, then you have to have a rain date. So, there are complications there. A lot of orchestras have already said, we are not going to be doing anything in the fall. We'll pick back up in the spring. And then just very recently, a lot of orchestras are saying, we're going to find another way to connect with everybody and to give the music that we make to them, but we're not going to be meeting in a concert hall this year, the season. So September for us through May, that's what it is. Those are all possibilities. We are still planning to do our normal presentation, but at this point, we are aware that we have to be ready to be flexible and to adapt. And so we're going to be doing at least what Sammy has been describing as we go forward, and maybe a mixture of them as we manage our way through it.
A lot of orchestras have been getting their musicians also to do chamber music virtually, where somebody sets up what's called a click track, and it's essentially a metronome soundtrack, and musicians will put in an earpiece or like an a AirPod or just a one headphone, I guess, and they will play along their part. They'll record that part to a click track. Sometimes there will be somebody who's already recorded something else on top of the click track so that they have a reference point for tuning. And then all of the videos get sent to one central person, and that person puts them into Adobe Premiere or GarageBand or some other audio editing software and lays them all on top of each other with the videos, and then creates virtual chamber music. So that's a very popular style of video right now, and that's also a possibility of some things that we could produce if we don't end up playing in the concert hall this season.
Interesting. I wondered how they did that. When you see those groups getting together or singing together online, you know,
Yes.
lately, how in the world did they do that?
Well, I think a lot of them are wearing like at least one headphone, and so they're listening to a click track or a reference track so that they can all play the same tempo. And a click track is just a metronome, just kind of, just the steady beat so that they all play the same tempo, and then they can all line up together.
Uh-huh. But we need David in there as well. So
if we have a click track,
well, we at least need the video of you doing that.
Now, speaking of that though, some orchestras have created a really neat format where they've had almost the entire orchestra, and they've placed the videos in the position in which they would be in the orchestra. And then they have inserted a video of the conductor, probably just conducting to the wall, honestly, in the video. But then the video itself has all the musicians in the concert arc, their little square videos, and then they have the square video of the conductor down at the bottom. So it's kind of neat. It's a visualization of what the orchestra would be doing live.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's so neat, the possibilities, because then you wonder, you go so far into this virtual world for such a period of time, then what goes back to normal and what doesn't, what takes over as just the new thing. And
yes, yeah. I'm excited. It's giving us an opportunity to kind of get into a media platform we haven't gotten into before, and I think this is going to not just only change the communication and engagement with the community for the Terre Haute Symphony, but symphony orchestras all over the country, and gain a different audience. It's going to reach out to younger audiences and go across platforms, and it's going to be really interesting how symphony orchestras evolve over the next couple years.
So one of the things that I'm really, really excited about is if we can do some of the educational things that Sammy was talking about, where there are demonstrations. The double bass player plays the lowest note and then a very high note, and then he plays a little something like da-dum, 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 and everybody in the place goes, Jaws! Well, if we can do those separately and then send them, it will be like going into the classroom with musicians, but we can do it in a virtual way. And so we can have several of these that prepare the kids to come into a concert, 3 years from now, And so it layers a whole different area of preparation, and it helps the music team. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. My mind, of course, too, goes to the income generation part of it. You know, I mean, you mentioned that, you know, that you ran all the numbers and things look pretty, you know, healthy for the symphony currently, you know, but if it, you know, goes long term, you know, how do we turn this virtual stuff into an income generating option? You know, how do we charge people, right, to get on their computer and watch things? You know, that's
an excellent question, and some topics we've talked about, and that's actually a topic that came up in this workshop that I attended with Network for Good, is how do we monetize this virtual content? And some ideas we've talked about just specifically with the symphony is on these musician profiles, getting sponsors or mini sponsors and having their logo placed on the video, or doing some kind of, you know, deal after you watch the end of the video, you get a code for 10% off your next meal at whatever. So allowing the community to kind of be part of these musician profiles, get their name out there, because I think these musician profile videos are going to be seen by a lot more people than would necessarily come to our concert. So it's eventually, you know, a very good investment for them.
yeah.
Other options is Music in Bloom was an experiment, and it was a very successful experiment, and it was free. But there are ways for us to sell virtual tickets so that they pay a sum of money for a ticket to the event. They log into the live stream, and then they have to enter a code or some other kind of key to get in and actually watch the live video. So that's another option that we've looked at for monetizing some of our virtual content.
Mm-hmm. And subscribing maybe in some way. I know I came across a fitness gym from up in Michigan who I like to follow them, but then, you know, but they also had an opportunity to kind of subscribe to classes online, you know, and you kind of like,
Right.
I think you're saying I guess you buy that code that you can plug in to watch.
Right. That's another, you know, excellent option for us to consider as well. And you know, the big question then becomes pricing. I think that's something that as an organization we still have to discuss. Like, you know, you're not getting it in front of you live, but you're some really intimate content virtually, and how do we balance that with a live concert ticket and virtual concert ticket? And do those need to be different, or do we need to have some other extra incentives? So those are some questions we're still considering as an organization.
Yes.
So when I think about this, one of my concerns is that people will move away from going to live concerts. And just to say, there is such a different feel when it's in the room, not just for the audience to experience it, but for us as musicians. I mean, we feel,
Absolutely.
we feel the expressive responses, and that motivates us. And we play differently in front of. That's why Leonard Bernstein, for instance, at the end of his life, he would not record any repertoire just in a studio. He wanted it to be live because it made such a huge difference. So this is a stopgap measure, but it is not a replacement. At least that's what we're hoping.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I see too that we have maybe had somebody who raised their hand as far as an attendee. I think maybe because we have 10 minutes left, and I'm sure we have some questions from our attendees there that maybe they'd like to, you know, express them themselves. So I'm going to unmute those folks if I can. Attendees. Okay, I think Mr. Russell, Alan, are you there? Let's see. There you go. I saw that you raised your hand and you have a question. Do you want to ask your question?
No, I was just going to say how much I appreciate this presentation. I work in a place where our primary product are face-to-face conferences. We're struggling with the same thing, but there is no substitute, as David said, for being there and what takes place in the interaction between people. So I don't think it should supplant it, But I do believe, like David is, that the market's going to drift to doing it only online, and it's not the real thing. Although you get caught up on some of these. I'll say the wrong name, but Andre, whatever his name is, from Denmark, yeah, does a spectacular job with his shows. I mean, it's different. I was disappointed on New Year's Eve not seeing the Boston Pops. I don't believe Independence Eve, seeing the Boston Pops. I watch them every year. I've been to the Pops in Boston, and it is just a different whole way of doing things. And as Kate and Rebecca and Sarah know, my wife and I are going to be new joiners to Westminster Village. And one of the pluses I see is being relocated into Terre Haute and being available then, not having all the other responsibilities to take off and come to the symphony. You know, when we've lived in, we've never been a heavy symphony followers, primarily because of time and location. But we have participated in going to venues that are musicals and spend a lot of time at Butler. We drive to Butler for some things. So it's not that we don't enjoy it, but we look forward to our new experiences and a different lifestyle to be able to just walk out the door, forget about security and everything else, and be able to go to those venues. And is it my understanding that you all may even make some little stops at Westminster Village with some little programs? Or okay,
we are allowed, absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, I can't help but reflect on the metronome, and I'm a great devotee of Ansel Adams. Ansel Adams only printed with a metronome, and so did Alan Russell. It's the only thing I used. I didn't use a clock. I used a metronome. And I will tell you, my daughter won't let me sing in public or church. And I'm so bad that when I was a lay person with the minister, who wasn't any better than I was, the ushers always shut our mics off when we were in the hymns. So music has not been my strong point in terms of being able to do it. But I very much enjoyed this presentation because it tells me a little bit about what I can do in our new experience.
Yes.
And what all are doing for it. So,
awesome.
Well, you know, right now it's an hour time change. That's bigger than some people understand of what it takes to jump between the time changes and to go to things in Terre Haute. So I'm looking forward to it as a change in lifestyle a little bit, and kind of relaxing into a different time in our life at this point.
Excellent. We look forward to having you at a concert, Alan.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. I see Sherry Daly has a question as well. Sherry, you raised your hand.
I did, and I just learned how to unmute when you're in a webinar.
Yay!
So very, very smart. Alan, welcome to Westminster Village. All of us here, I think all is not an exaggeration, appreciate being here, the opportunities that we have. Our staff does an excellent job, and hooray, bravo, all of those good things. It's also nice at some points, I believe we've had transportation, haven't we, David?
We have.
That has been provided, so you don't even need to worry about finding parking and that sort of thing. So welcome. I I want to make a comment about the virtual concert, and specifically then about subscriptions. In other words, having us pay to participate in a virtual concert. I think a part of the charm of the Music in Bloom was its, and I apologize for this word if it insults you, but the amateurish quality of the video, not of the music, of course, but it was so obvious that you were not professionals. I mean, I know that Mike is, but that's not the way that it came across. It came across that you were people who wanted to share something you love. You had a level of exuberance that was wonderful, but it wasn't polished. And I really liked that fact. I think the problem with charging is that we would expect it to be very professional. And it would be, it's just so difficult to compete with other things that we subscribe to or pay for. And so I just wanted to throw that out as a kind of gut reaction. I may be completely mistaken, but it was just such fun in the virtual concert. I also want to tell you, Sammy, that I played the clarinet. I never knew you had to have your lower lip over your teeth. And so I might have been better. If only I'd known that. Nobody told me that. I also wanted to mention that if for the next virtual concert, it's done through the Indiana Sports Network, make sure we know that, because a whole lot of us were puzzled when we tried to plug in and it said Indiana Sports Network. We thought we must be in the wrong place or whatever. I've heard several people mention that. It wasn't a big problem because we had ultimately got through and assumed, so that was just fine. And the third thing I want to say, David, one time at one of the board meetings, you went through the process from choosing a particular piece of music that you were going to have the symphony play, all the way through the process, then finally of presenting it to the live audience. It's one of the most fascinating meetings that I've ever attended, because frankly, it's real easy. When you see a professional stand up there and wave his hands and say charming things, and musicians follow along perfectly, it's so easy to assume that that just happens. And if you do it right, that's exactly the way your audience should feel. Robert Edmond Jones, the theater artist, said, when I go to a play, I go to see the play and not the work done on a play. And that's exactly the way it is when you all are working perfectly. We have no idea that work that has gone into it. But every once in a while, it's good for us to be reminded that what is involved to get you all up there playing the same music is quite remarkable. So for one of your virtual things, Sammy, it might be fun to have David go through that process, so that everyone has a depth of appreciation. I find my husband played the French horn when he was in sixth grade, I think, and only 1 year. And as he tells the story, all he did was when the tuba went boom, he went boom, boom. And that was his musical experience.
Oh my.
But he loves that he loves that every time a French horn does anything, I mean, they can just be sitting there holding their instruments. Tom is thrilled. Look at the French horns, he'll say. And so I think that understanding, the deeper it goes to what is going on, the more likely we are to remain committed to what the symphony does, through thick and through thin, so to speak. And we cannot also overstate the pride that we feel in the fact that our symphony is doing well financially as well as artistically. And we can't overstate how glad we are, Sammy, to have you on board. It's wonderful, wonderful to have you here. And David, you are so tired of me thanking you that I will not do it one more time. Maybe one more time privately, but I'll try to avoid that publicly.
So just to say for everybody, Sherry, she alluded to a board meeting. She has been a long-term board member, one who has stayed on past her term because she's past president. She was president of the symphony for a period of time, and then we have a past president position. So thank you for your long-term commitment, Sherry. And I notice also that Bev Christie is on with us, and Bev is also a past board member and a person who's helped me more than I can say, you know, when we first arrived. So it's nice to have people who do the work with the board and then stay engaged afterwards, and Bev has been great at that.
I agree with Sherry too. Just understanding more of that background, you know, makes a huge difference and really does like compel you to remain committed. I think that's a beautiful idea she has for, if you're willing to share that story, David, on a video.
Oh, of course. Yep. David is a musician. He will get his own profile video. And I love your idea, Sherry, that, you know, spawns an opportunity to possibly create a video video category of how the orchestra works and how do we choose music and how do we do auditions and other kind of behind the scenes information that audiences don't necessarily see or know about.
Yeah. Is there any final question that we need to tackle before we wrap up? Let's see. Oh, Sherry has a, go ahead, Sherry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that I had unmuted, but apparently
Okay.
I hadn't. For all of you who are listening, if David ever asks you to be on the board, by all means say yes, not only because it's an interesting board to serve on. I should say if Sammy asks you, because she'll be the one doing it now. It's an interesting board to serve on. But the other thing is that you are really asked your opinion. And your opinion is valued, which doesn't always happen on every board that you serve on. And in that regard, once you get off the board, you're still asked. To the point that last year, David had a question and he called me and he said, what do you think about blah, blah? And I said, have you talked to Bev? And he said, yes, I talked to Bev before I talked to you. I said, well, of course. And if Bev agrees, then yes, I go along with whatever she says. It's a great board, and thank you for the opportunity to serve. Okay, now I'm lowering my hand.
What else should we know, Sammy and David? What is there any final thing that we missed that we should know before we go today?
I think the one thing that I would say is we really are very hopeful that we will be able to make music with everybody present. We miss that. I mean, that's what our job is. That's what our heart is, and we miss that. And so we're very hopeful that in some way we'll be able to do that and stay engaged. Regardless, we'll be there when it's all over, and we'll be back doing that and maybe other things as well.
And actually, Marie has commented again or chatted, and she wanted me to let you know that she applauds that you are all thinking outside of the box during these times. It is definitely a challenge during a pandemic, and she looks forward to following the videos and performances and wants to thank you for doing this talk.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Marie.
Terrific. Well, I'll let you all go. We're at 10 minutes to the hour, and thank you so much for your time. I know we all have lots of things going on and other challenges in our lives. Thank you for taking this hour to join us and share. We have recorded our webinar, and so I'll check with Alan and Sherry since they both commented and make sure they're okay with us posting it up on our YouTube page, and we can share it on yours as well, and just help to inform even more people. So
Excellent. Thanks so much for having us. This was a treat.
Kate, thank you. Thank you for doing all the work that was necessary to get this going. This is a really good thing, and we would love to be back.
yes, we'd love to have you back. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.